And we're off. Hi. Welcome. Day after the Super Bowl. All Dolphins Podcast, episode 462. Kansas City Chiefs have been vanquished. And I'm joined to talk about the Super Bowl aftermath as much as we can related to the Miami Dolphins. More Tyreek Hill because there's always Tyreek Hill stuff to talk about because it's as the Tyreek turns. Was it? No. Like sand through the hourglass. These are the days of Tyreek. Something like
That's
that.
it.
Chris Perkins is in the house. How are you, Perk?
I'm good, man. You're happy because Kansas City has been vanquished.
Not even. You know what? It's like once they're there, it's done. At that point, it's like okay, it doesn't matter. This is going to be probably a very unpopular take, and I'm going to get nasty pushback in the comments. I'm almost, as a fan, I resent the Chiefs for having taken the place of a better team in the AFC, whereas I would say the Chiefs were just better at closing games, finding a way to win, and getting all the breaks. Nobody's going to convince me that this was the best team in the AFC, the team that could have given the Eagles a better game and us as fans a better Super Bowl. I think Buffalo was a better team, and Baltimore was a better team. And I get it. Well, how come they didn't beat them? Because you play it once and you don't play it's not a series. What say you?
I say that the best two teams in the NFL were in the Super Bowl. And Kansas City's defense, I listen, these guys know how to win. Yes, they get breaks, but they know how to win. They know how to beat teams that are more talented than them. That's a skill. That puts you in the Super Bowl. That makes you have what were they, 15-2? Right? Whatever their record was. There were teams that were more talented. Nobody knew how to win as well as the Kansas City Chiefs, except Philadelphia.
That's fair. That's fair. And part of it is, because again, I get your argument, and part of it is, and somebody made the point to me on Twitter today, and it's a very, very good point. Just like when teams were playing the Patriots during their prime when they were always winning with Brady, it seemed like teams didn't play their game or were trying to do too much or were like thinking too much because they were playing the Patriots. And the same thing happens with KC. Yep. But it's still, to me, as purely as a fan, this is why, again, once they got in the Super Bowl, I wanted to see somebody else in the Super Bowl. Once they got there, it's like they win, they don't. And they got their asses kicked as it turned out. And you know, I'm going to love, and I'm going to maybe lead off with my man Vic. I mean, come on.
I agree. I am a bigger Fangio and Flores fan than I am a McDaniel fan as far as methods. It's not working.
I've lost the ability to do the hearts.
Wow,
sorry,
no love.
Vic, I wanted to send you the hearts. I know. But it's again as if we really needed it. More validation that whatever issues there were on defense in 2023, and there weren't that many, that dude can coach. I mean, absolutely can coach. And what he did with that defense, where starting two rookies in the secondary, it's the youngest defense in the NFL. They went from 31st to 1st. And then also their takeaways went from 16 to 28 or something along those lines, 16 to 27. And the Dolphins this year, while they improved in terms of yards allowed, the takeaways went way down. And part of that is the pass rush wasn't as good. And the sacks also went way down. So, and then obviously there's an issue of personnel. He's got better personnel in Philadelphia. And that's part of the issue for the Dolphins is how can you accumulate that kind of talent the way the Eagles have?
That is a good question. I will say this also, that the stat that Anthony Weaver prizes most, the points allowed per game, I don't have it here in front of me, shame on me, but I think Philly was number 2 and Kansas City was number 4, and the Dolphins were like number 17 or something like that. I think KC was like 17.8 points, or the Philly like 17.8 and KC like 19.2, I believe. But my point here is that, the defense, these were two good defenses They outshine the quarterbacks over the regular season. To me, I know that's not fashionable. That's not how you promote the league. You're not going to hear that on NFL Network or ESPN because it doesn't sell. But the two defenses were the stories here to me, and the two defensive coordinators were the story of the Super Bowl here to me. It wasn't Saquon, it wasn't Mahomes, it wasn't Jalen Hurts. It was these defenses and the defensive coordinators. And as you wrote, this should sell the Dolphins. There's more than one way to win a Super Bowl. And I've written before that you can win a Super Bowl with McDaniel, you can win a Super Bowl with Tua, but you're not going to win it with this one-dimensional offense and ignoring some basic fundamentals when it comes to discipline and team culture and all that kind of stuff. The Dolphins are too flash and dash. They need to pay attention more to fundamentals. That's one of my takeaways from this Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. The one problem the Dolphins have is they have such a long way to go to build a roster anywhere as good as Philadelphia's, which is loaded everywhere. I mean, just look at their defensive line again. That's like, I mean, they have 8 studs. I mean, seriously, they can rotate. I mean, it's ridiculous. They're 2 starters or 2 first-round picks, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. The backups, Milton Williams, who's a hell of a player.
Yeah.
Then you have on the edge, they just drafted a 4th-round pick this year, Hunt, who comes in the game and he's really, really effective to go behind your starters, Nolan Smith, who did nothing as a rookie last year, and then all of a sudden the light flash. I don't know how much Vic played a role in it, but certainly didn't help. And then you got Josh Sweat on the other part, who somebody pointed out to me, because I've written about how the Dolphins passed on players that the Eagles wound up taking shortly thereafter in the same draft, and how the Eagles always got the better player. Another example is the Dolphins took Durham Smythe in round 4. Few picks later, the Eagles took Josh Sweat, who, by the way, I have written on Twitter and I will maintain for a very, very long time, maybe until the day I die, he should have been the MVP.
Should have been the MVP, and you knew that wasn't going to happen. There was zero chance of a defensive player getting MVP over Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes. Zero chance. I don't care if Chris Jones would have had 12 sacks. Mahomes was going to get MVP. Like, that's the way this league is run. That's the way the media thinks. That's the way you're programmed in this league. It's quarterback, quarterback, quarterback. And look, I will tell you this also, that there's some teams that I really admire the way that they're built. Baltimore, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, San Francisco, Philadelphia. And when we talk San Francisco and Philadelphia, again, to your point with Tua, think of who they've been to the Super Bowl with. With San Francisco, Colin Kaepernick, Jimmy G, and Brock Purdy. With Philly, Nick Foles, Jalen Hurts. Are you kidding me? Tua's better than all of them. Well, maybe not better than Jalen Hurts. And actually, Brock, it might be. But my point is, well, let's strike that statement. He's as good. But the point is, you can win in a variety of ways. There is no formula in the NFL, which is, you keep hearing quarterback, quarterback, quarterback. You need a quality quarterback. You kind of need Pro Bowl level play from your quarterback for that season. But you don't need a perennial Hall of Famer or a perennial Pro Bowl guy. You need a guy who can make timely plays. And then however else you choose to win, whether it's defense, run game, passing, whatever, you do what fits your talent. But there is no formula to win a Super Bowl. You do whatever fits your talent.
Yeah, and to me, it's always because again, everybody does the same thing. It's like black or white. It's right. Always the better your quarterback, the larger your margin for error. That's pretty kind of simple. Right. And in the AFC, because I wrote a column today on Miami Dolphins on SI.com where you can get a ton of content every day for free, no paywall. About how Jalen Hurts winning the Super Bowl, and this is no slight on Jalen Hurts, shows you don't have to have that top tier guy, because to me and to I think a lot of people, there are 4 of those. It's Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen.
Right, exactly right.
So you don't have to have necessarily one of those guys if you have, if your roster is pretty stacked everywhere else. Somebody pushed back, and it's not an unfair argument. Basically, his point was like, yeah, good luck winning in the AFC, because the other part of the equation is Eagles play in the NFC, so they don't have to go through all those quarterbacks. And go ahead.
No, that's true. But for all you can say about quarterbacks, what the hell do Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen ultimately have? Losses to Patrick Mahomes. And it's not just because of Patrick Mahomes, as we've seen the last 2 years. They've shifted gears. They're now a defensive team after they've traded Tyreek, got L'Jarius Sneed left, but they still have Chris Jones. They still have McDuffie, Drew Tranquil. They've still got a good defense, a butt-kicking defense, as a matter of fact. And so, yes, you do have to go through these quarterbacks in the AFC, but the quarterbacks, those teams also have to figure a different way. And look, to their credit, Buffalo gets rid of Stephon Diggs and they have a better season. Baltimore adds Derrick Henry and they have a better season, but those two quarterbacks, they still run into brick walls. So I do appreciate the quarterback. I do appreciate the quarterback contention, but it's not all about the quarterback to me. You've got to figure out a different way to beat Patrick Mahomes, just like Patrick Mahomes figured out a different way to beat you.
Yeah, and the other part of the issue is there's only so many of those guys.
Right.
Like good luck getting one of those top 4 guys. Yep. So and here's the other point I would make though. And my whole point was that there are other ways of getting there, no matter how difficult it is. And then you mentioned like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, like they ran into a brick wall. Yeah, except again, I think we're making way too many grandiose statements based on 2 games, one of which was decided because Mark Andrews couldn't hang under the 2-point conversion on a less than great throw by Lamar. We should point out. But Baltimore was eliminated by 2 points when they couldn't convert a 2-point conversion. It's not like they got blown out because they weren't flat out not good enough. And then Buffalo, we don't need to point out, again, the quarterback sneak and all that, and the 4th and 5. So the margin between winning and losing was really small. It's just that they couldn't quite get it done. And I go back to my original point with the Dolphins. The problem that they have right now is either you have to have one of the two. You have to have that stud quarterback. Obviously, under any scenario, you need a good team around him. Right. But you have to have that upper echelon, top tier, Fab 4 quarterback, or you better have a really, really good roster everywhere. And the Dolphins don't have that quarterback, and they are nowhere near that because they have kind of holes. I don't know if they're the right word, but deficiencies in a whole lot of different areas.
They do it. And, to kind of put a bow on this, Poop, one of the frustrating things is look at how Detroit has surged past the Dolphins since that game that they played a couple of years ago. And you talk about drafting and building a team. And Jared Goff is not a great quarterback, but they did it the right way. You talk about studs at every position. And if they wouldn't have, 6 or 7 key defensive injuries, maybe they're the team in the Super Bowl instead of Philly. Maybe, who knows? But Detroit has built the right way, and they've surged past the Dolphins. Frustrating.
So the lesson there is it's probably a lot more sustainable if you can nail the draft, which is what the Dolphins have not done, which they have the opportunity to do to a certain degree this year because they're going to have a lot of picks. They are currently scheduled to have 7 plus the expected 3 compensatory picks, which would give you a total of 10. And then there's always a possibility of trading down to accumulate more picks. But the Dolphins need to have one of those drafts like the Lions have had recently, like the Chiefs have had recently, like the Eagles have had recently. And I guess we should mention there's a new mock draft, and I wrote about this as well on MiamiDolphinsOnTheSide.com from Chad Reuter, who is one of the draft analysts for NFL.com, and he projected a trade that the Dolphins would make in round 1 to – and I like the trade. I mean, there was a 1 and a 4 for a later 1, a 2, and a 3.
Yep.
If the Dolphins can do that, absolutely. They need volume. I mean, they need talent, an infusion of talent, because again, it's not just the fact that they have 12 million. They're 12 million over the cap. They have 27 pending free agents. So you got to replenish the roster with the guys you're going to lose. So they are in a tricky spot.
I like what Chad Reuter did in that draft, and I would do that too if I'm the Dolphins. Here's my question to you, Poop. If you are Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel, knowing that you at the minimum need to make the playoffs this year, does that trade get you to the playoffs? Essentially, when you have the 10 picks, if I'm not mistaken, you've got 2 in the 5th round and 2 in the 7th. So you're going to essentially have 6 picks in the 1st through 4th round, guys that can come in and make an immediate contribution. And I know Malik Washington last year, a 6th-round pick, made an immediate contribution. That's an exception. So we're talking about 6 picks. If you are Greer and McDaniel, is that the formula that keeps your job past 2025? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. And do you get points for having some foresight if you lose a 1st-round playoff game? Probably not. So while that's a good thing, again, Dave Hyde, my colleague, has written about this. Who's minding the store? Who's looking out for the franchise? If there are trade offers such as that, does Tom Garfinkel or Steve Ross say you're taking that trade because we need volume? Or if Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel say we need to win this year, do you allow them to take whoever's at number 13 because it's probably a better, more talented player than you'll get at 28 or 22 or wherever that pick puts you? There are factors. There are factors here.
Yeah, and that's a tricky position the Dolphins are in. And, of course, probably what boils down to the conversation that was had between Steve Ross, Mike McDaniel, and Chris Greer about exactly what the expectations are. If Ross has told him, I want to see this thing on the right track, whatever that means, or which is not the same thing as saying you make the playoffs or else.
Right.
And if it's make the playoffs or else, hell, would anybody be surprised if they traded those picks for a veteran? I mean, I wouldn't, because again, if they're going to do what they need to do for themselves.
Right.
Even though they want the best for the organization, but it's also, there's a survival mode involved there too.
But I do like what Chad Reuter proposed, and I think if I'm not mistaken, he had him taking a linebacker in the 1st round.
That I don't like. Don't mention the name because it's in my story. But that I don't like.
I don't either. A D tackle in the 2nd, if I'm not mistaken, and then in the 3rd, a corner and a quarterback, right? The Nick Emenwari of South Carolina and Dylan Gabriel of Oregon,
That's your friend. That's your friend at safety that you can't pronounce.
Yeah, I know. I tried. I probably butchered his name. Right, I tried. I don't. That's the only pick that I like. A D tackle in the 2nd round is good. That's good. You could use that. He could be an impact player. The linebacker in the 1st, I agree with you. And Dylan Gabriel, no quarterback in the 3rd round, probably no quarterback in this draft. You need too much. I'm for a veteran backup quarterback, a guy who has started before, a guy like Marcus Mariota. We've discussed all of this. But I like the trade. I don't like what Chad Reuter had the Dolphins doing with those draft picks.
Yeah. And what has Philly done? Philly has pounded the offensive line and the defensive line in the draft. I mean, bad. I actually probably even more so the defensive line. I mentioned Jordan Davis is a 1st-round pick.
Jalen Carter
is a 1st-round pick.
Yep.
Josh Wetzel was a 4th-round pick. Yep. Hunt, a defensive, was a 4th-round pick. Nolan Smith's a 1st-round pick.
Yep.
They just keep pounding it. And what happened is, and then they pounded Patrick Mahomes. And if you recall, I mean, what's the biggest reason they won yesterday? It's because their front four completely killed the KC offensive line. Yep. It kind of reminded me of those Giants-Patriots Super Bowls when Justin Tuck, Michael Strahan, Osi Umenyiora were in Tom Brady's face without having to blitz anybody. There's something to be said for that. So to me, it would be fortify the trenches, and we don't need to talk about the guard position because obviously they need it. Okay.
Tampa pounding Patrick Mahomes a few years ago.
They sent backers after him because I remember our friend Shaq Barrett had a good game, and who else? There was somebody else. I think Devin White also did some damage with his blitzing too.
Kansas City had no offensive tackles that day, and and Tampa took advantage. Yeah.
And no offensive tackles yesterday either. And Joe Tooney, who's been a great guard throughout the NFL and actually done a good job for most of the season for the Chiefs at left tackle, really got his lunch handed to him. And is another part, I want to say this, and you mentioned this piggybacks on your point about so much focus on the quarterbacks. And it's like all of a sudden Patrick Mahomes was a complete dog yesterday. Stop the GOAT conversation. Stop the GOAT conversation. He's been a starter for 7 years. They've been to the AFC Championship game 7 times. They've been to the Super Bowl 5 times, won 3. All of a sudden, he can't be because his numbers weren't good through 3 quarters. Are we kidding? What are we doing here? And on top of that second pick, watch the replay. The dude Tooney gets pushed back into him as he's about to throw. He can't go through his motion. That's not on him. Right. I mean, my Lord, is that stupid? And then, and the head-to-head thing, although it drives me insane. Jalen Hurts now is 1-1 against Mahomes. He has to be considered. Last I checked, it was a team game, and Jalen Hurts didn't beat this ain't tennis where Jalen Hurts beat Roger Federer across the net. God, it's so stupid.
Can I say I'm proud of myself. I didn't watch much of the second half, and I have watched 10 seconds of Super Bowl analysis today. I was changing channels, and I caught Louis Riddick on Get Up, and I realized what I had done, and I went off because I didn't want to get frustrated like you are. I refuse to. I'm gonna see if I can go like all week without hearing in-depth post-Super Bowl analysis because I don't want to end up like you, frustrated.
Oh my God, it's so stupid. And I see my note here. The other one also that I really loved is Vic Fangio was 0-8 against Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. And his teams had given up. It was like 3, 14, 13 points and all that. And he basically, the quarterbacks were nondescript, to be very polite. But sure, he was 0-8. I mean, come on. Seriously? Enough with breaking everything down to the one loss record when you're talking about the ultimate team game.
Yep.
And this isn't to say like Jalen Hurts did himself proud. He played really, really well. He balled out. Yeah. He balled out in the first Super Bowl against the Chiefs as well.
Yep.
But leave the record enough where he beat Patrick. He didn't beat Patrick Mahomes. The Eagles beat Patrick. Beat the Chiefs.
Right.
Oh my God, it's stupid. Okay, I feel better now. Let's move on to a much more mellow topic. Tyreek Hill.
Oh yeah. I don't calm things down.
So as you may be aware, if you follow the Dolphins, you should be aware that Tyreek was on I guess we could call it an apology tour last week.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess somebody got in his ear. Maybe Drew Rosenhaus would be my guess.
Yeah.
Told him, dude, why don't you go on Radio Row and try to make things right a little bit? And of course, it's the mea culpa, up to and including apology. First, he apologized to Tua. This was on the Diane Rossini. He apologized to Tua, and I'm thinking, no, it's not because I'm a Tua hater, but why is he apologizing to Tua and not the rest of the team? Right. And then she follows with, "Do you want? Oh, well, while we're here, do you want to apologize to the team?" And then, yeah, it's an apology. To me, again, why to your quarterback only? But okay, what do I know? And then he wants to stay in Miami. He said the things out of frustrations. We all knew that. And then comes the report on Sunday that the Dolphins are not planning on trading him. Shocker. Yeah. And then you wrote about him on Monday on sunsentinel.com. Mm-hmm. Check out Perk's fine work at sunsentinel.com. And since it's in the headline, I'm not spoiling anything. You're basically saying he shouldn't be a team captain. And to that, I say, hat tip, yes.
Yeah, and listen, he does not behave and carry himself in the fashion of a team captain. And as I said in there, this is not about Tyreek on the field. Tyreek busts his butt on the field. Yes. He practices hard. He plays hard. This is about the off-field antics, and specifically the off-field antics that affect the Dolphins. This has nothing to do with his lawsuit with the social media influencer model. This has to do with pulling yourself out of the game, saying, I'm out. Do you realize that this was the 3rd time this season that Tyreek had to say, I want to stay here, I don't want to leave? There was the time after the Rashee Rice injury, right, where he tweets, waking up to trade rumors, feel good,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
he tweeted.
yeah.
And then the other one was after Houston lost, it's time for me to go, coach. And then you have after the Jets three times,
No,
he's
Perk,
had to say, I'm joking, I don't want to leave.
Perk, it was supposed to be it's time to go, coach.
Right.
Now it's time to go, coach.
Right. I had a misplaced. Yes, it's a grammatical error. Error. Yeah. So and he leaves people to answer for his stuff. Right, like when after the Houston game, when he or San Francisco, I'm sorry, when he says, "I need more practice time." Well, Mike McDaniel is nice enough to give you vet rest days, and you're saying you need more practice time. Mike McDaniel and Tua have to answer these questions about this stuff. There's that right thumb injury in Tampa where that he misses a joint practice, and Mike McDaniel has to make a comment, yeah, I beat him in a thumb war. And then we later learn, well, there was really no right thumb injury. Mike McDaniel, again, is in an awkward position where he covers for Tyreek. This is not team captainly stuff. Again, this has nothing to do with Tyreek's performance and all of that, his practice habits, his playing habits, his personal life. This has to do with being a knucklehead and having teammates and coaches having to answer stuff for you. He didn't come out in the team locker cleanout day after the Jets and show up and speak. Other people had to speak for him. I have nothing against Tyreek personally or professionally. I'm just saying if I'm a player on that team, there's precedent for not voting somebody a team captain because you did it with Javon Holland. He was a team captain in 23, but not in 24. You need to do the same thing with Tyreek.
Well said. Well said. Everything Perks just said. No, and again, yeah, this is not somebody you want as a face of the franchise. If we're going to be honest about it, I mean, in terms of talent, he's way up there. Right. But you want somebody like a true leader, like a Calais Campbell, if he were to come back, like a Teron Armstead, if he's going to come back. Those kinds of guys are the guys you want, up front, leading the way. And for the thing is, it was like the post-game rant after the Jets game was all about my feelings,
right,
my frustration,
right,
and all that. Well, dude, the whole team lost. It wasn't just you.
Right.
Right. And it was like, and I get I'm a competitor. Okay, great. You can be a competitor and not fly off the handle like this, particularly since you just missed a playoff for the first time in your entire career. Dude, It's going to happen. I mean, seriously. Right. So no, I could not agree with you more.
Let me ask you this. I really liked what Teron Armstead said about Tyreek and Hal Habib wrote about this on the Palm Beach Post. Just that Tyreek can't lose his mind like that. He can't have those moments of where you just lose it. You're a team captain. You've got to be better. You've got to be more responsible. On that vibe, should Teron come back? Teron is one of the best players that the Dolphins have. Clearly, he's a huge help on and off the field. He stabilizes that offensive line, but you can't count on him physically. And you've got a second-round pick that I'm not sure he can play guard. Like he's a left tackle. Austin Jackson's coming back at right tackle.
Yep.
We know the finances aren't going to be a big thing with Teron. He takes you write him a check, you redo the contract. It's not a money thing. It is a performance thing and a Patrick Paul thing. Again, if you're Greer and McDaniel, you want Teron back because you've got to make the playoffs. If you're the organization, what do you do about this? That's a very tough call. I haven't decided, quite honestly, Poop. Teron is a rock. Like, you need that dude on the field and in the locker room. He is stability. He is great for your team. But you got this second-round pick that probably can't play guard, probably isn't going to play right tackle because of Austin Jackson. It's a tough position.
No, it is. And there are cap ramifications with Armstead. If you cut him, you keep him.
Yep.
And this is, again, part of the dilemma of the Dolphins offseason. I mean, they put themselves in a pickle.
Yep.
I'm, again, given what he means to the team on the field and off the field, I'm not so sure. I obviously you have to have the discussion with him because cap number 22 million is a little steep.
Yeah.
I don't know that, and then you see if you know if he's going to be agreeable to doing it. A little bit of a pay cut, you restructure, kick some more cap stuff down the road because that's what teams do. Add those ever popular void years.
But his right knee at the end of the season was so bad. Like he couldn't, like he's lifting that leg up and it, like his last, I don't know, 3-4 games were just, you just wonder, can he do it for 17, like, or 18 and actually I shouldn't say that. Can he be healthy in November, December, January? That's really, and that's what it came down to this year. And the answer this year was no, not really. It's not going to get any better, but he's such a good guy and again, I'm undecided, but it's a tough question. You want to run, but is that the best for the franchise?
Correct. Well, I think there's going to be some discussions, and this is something that Tehran also did the rounds on Radio Row. It was Tehran, Tyreek, Dan Marino. I know was on the Pat McAfee show. I don't know if he was on the. I'm trying to remember if Marino was on Pro Football Talk as well. I'm not 100% sure. Generally, Raheem Mostert did a couple of things too. Chop Robinson did a couple of things.
Berrios?
Who?
Braxton Berrios?
Right. I saw him do one interview as well. Tua has done this in the past. I didn't see him at all or heard about him doing anything this year. Anyway, so one of the things that Tehran said is that in a couple of weeks, he's probably going to, I'm going through puberty here. So in a couple of weeks, probably going to sit down with the Dolphins and discuss. And every comment he was making, he was talking about us, the direction we want to go in. So it certainly sounds like from his end, he does want to play again.
Yep. Because
he's talked about retirement in previous offseason. And no, that's one of the toughest calls. That one's a massively tough call, and Bradley Chubb's a very tough call because that cap number of 29 million is just not happening.
Chubb, Chubb, I'm inclined to keep Chubb because I don't know what Jalen Phillips is going to look like. I don't know what Chop Robinson's going to look like. I don't know what Mo Kamara is going to look like. I don't know what Chubb's going to look like. So I'm inclined to keep Chubb. You do some financials, you cut him a check, you try to get his cap number down. There's so many, there's some tough questions like that with quality players that you've got to answer in the draft and returning and what positions are you going to draft and who's coming back and how good are they going to be, and the Dolphins clearly have some tough questions. But I'll say this, Poop, as I wrote though, I still think this should be a playoff team in 2025. You've still got some outstanding talent. I'm not saying you should win a playoff game or go to the Super Bowl. You should win 11 games. Dude, you won 8 this year. And that was with Tua missing 6. You should win 11 games next year. I know your schedule is probably going to be tougher.
It can't
be much easier.
You won 8 against the weakest schedule in the NFL.
But that was you messed up backup quarterback. Your offense again was very one-dimensional. Your run game was deficient in third down, red zone, goal line, and short yardage. Aside from that, it was great. You didn't have a slot receiver. You didn't have a backup quarterback. Like, it was bad planning. I think that the 8 and 9 was more on Greer and McDaniel than on the players. That's what I say.
Well, but the other way I would turn it around on you is to tell you that they were 11-6 in 2023.
Yes.
With maybe the best roster they've had in several years. Correct. And with a roster that I doubt the 2025 edition can match.
No, it will not. 2023 is the most talented team Mike McDaniel is going to have with the Dolphins for if he's here for the next 2 years, that'll be still the most talented team that he will have. I agree with that.
Correct. So I don't know. To me, I think it's going to be the same as this year. It's going to be life and death to make the playoffs. And
dude, these guys better make when you've got Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, Achane, Jonnu, Aaron Brewer, Austin Jackson, Jalen Ramsey, Zach Sealer, Cater Kohu, that's 8 wins right there. You fill in Jordan Brooks. Yeah, that's 8 wins right there. You fill in the gaps. you get to 10, you coach them up, you get to 11. Yeah, that's 8 wins right there, Poop. Dude, you've got.
I think you're overselling the talent on the roster personally with some of those guys. So who shall remain nameless at the time. I'm not going to go down this road.
Right. Wide receiver too, maybe.
Maybe.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't need to go down this road.
No, we don't need to go down this road.
It's a different show. That's a different show. But these guys, to me, they've got minimal playoff talent. Now, I'm not. Again, I don't. This is before free agency and the draft. I'm looking at this team and saying, you guys have playoff talent. You should be in. If not, again, I'm taking a broom to this organization.
But then here's a quick way of looking at it, okay? Because every year you're going to have maybe 2 or 3 teams in each conference that are going to drop. So you look at the AFC, which team that made the playoffs in 2024 would we expect to drop out of the playoffs next year? Pittsburgh, maybe, if they don't find a quarterback at the end. But then again, they always get there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dallas, the Dolphins, and San Francisco were 3 of those teams this year, right?
And Cleveland.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But strictly in the AFC, because that's where the Dolphins reside.
Right.
Which of the 7 teams can you see they're probably going to go? Because I would think Cincinnati would be on the other side as a team that didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
That's a very strong playoff contender, more so than the Dolphins. So which 2 teams did we see make the playoffs or will not make the playoffs next year?
Yeah, I can't call it right now. To your point, I can't call it right now.
And this is why, again, to me, it's not a slam dunk that the Dolphins are going to make the playoffs. Not saying that they don't have a shot, because they absolutely will have a shot.
Right.
But there's not, because you looked at Denver they made the playoffs with a rookie quarterback. They figured to be on the rise. Chargers made the playoffs with Jim Harbaugh in his first year in a bad cap situation. Now they got cap space up the wazoo.
Yep.
So they figured to be on an upward slide. You have to have one AFC South team like there was last year. Yeah. Buffalo going anywhere? KC going anywhere?
Yeah, figure Houston's not going anywhere.
Yeah. So
no, it's admittedly it's tough, but dude, when you have this much talent, this much just bottom line start, I know
that's my point though. How many would you say are clear top 10 players at their position on their Dolphin roster?
Not many. But here's what I would say though, is that you've got the outline, the skeletal structure of a quality offense, and the defense needs some work at a lot of levels because of who is departing. But if Teron comes back, and Austin Jackson, and Aaron Brewer, and Tua, and Jonnu, and Waddle, and Tyreek, and Achane, and that should be 8 wins right there. And I know you need a defense but I'm just saying that should be 8. Again, draft and free agency should get you to 10. You coach them up, you get to 11. I don't know that the draft and free agency are going to be successful. I don't know that McDaniel is that good a coach.
You get a couple of breaks, you get to 12. You get a good he takes at the right time. You get to 13, and then
you get Patrick Mahomes. You get to the championship, to the AFC. It's the same formula.
Or you get the right team in South Florida at the right time. That's 2 more wins. That's 15. So I'm trying to get to 17-0 here.
That's right. Exactly. You get 4 September home playoff games at noon at 1 o'clock, and yeah.
Voila, Super Bowl, here we come.
That's right.
I did some Super Bowl retrospective stuff over the weekend, like the top Dolphin plays in Super Bowl history and top individual performances, and it was like, it's a good thing I'm old and I can remember all of these, because it's been a minute. As they say, it's been a minute. Last thing before we leave on the calendar, the next thing on the calendar for the NFL is coming up on the 18th, I want to say, which is the first day that teams can use the franchise or transition tag. I cannot for the life of me envision the Dolphins tagging Javon Holland, because once they tag him, that basically locks in $19 million or $15 million against their cap, and they're already 12 over the cap. Could I say it's impossible? No, it's not impossible, but I doubt it. Burke?
Impossible. Okay. Yeah, you would be fired on the spot if you use that franchise and Javon Holland.
Damn.
Come on.
We close the show with a prognostication Somebody fired on the spot at Javon. Oh man, and now I want Javon Holland to get the tag. Oh man, I mean nothing personal, Perk. I mean, just to see you walk it back, because no, I don't want anything to happen to you, my friend. I want to see you walk it back if it happens.
I will do the Tyreek Hill apology tour if that happens.
There you go. You apologize to Tua, then you apologize to the rest of the team.
That's right. Very well done.
There you go. On that note, that's going to wrap it up on this Monday. What was it? February 10th. I don't think I ever said the date. Like people need to know, like on my calendar or something. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm still trying to get to 15,000. Not quite there yet. Friends, get your friends. Let's push it over 15,000. I said I will wear Dolphins gear if I get to 15,000. I'm still not wearing Dolphins gear. So put up with the Expo set. Until then, Chris Perkins writes for the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Check out his fine work at sunsentinel.com. You can read my work at Miami Dolphins on SI.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll catch you guys up on Wednesday, barring Dolphin news in the meantime.